This video is to give you the Cliff's Notes on constant velocity, what we mean by it, and the vocabulary and skills that surround this topic. I'm going to by necessity be brief because we don't need to be watching videos for the rest of our lives, but here we go. Constant velocity is the topic, but we can't start there with velocity because velocity is built on the back of other topics. We have to start with something more fundamental. And there's nothing really more fundamental than the idea of an origin. An origin, or another word for this, is a reference point. Spelling is hard. A reference point. Okay? What do we mean by this? Okay, this is the place from which other places are measured. That's why it's called a reference point. How do you know where you are? Well, from somewhere to somewhere else. We want a reference point, which we can also call an origin. This is a zero, a starting point. So on the back of that, once we have the idea of an origin, we can now measure other places. Where is this other place with reference to the original place? It's a little bit funny. There we go. Hopefully. Once we have that idea, then we are able to build on top of it the idea of position. If we don't have an origin, if we don't have a reference, we cannot talk about the location of anything because we don't have anywhere to reference. We do this intuitively, but we have this idea of a position. Important notes. In this course, we will use that symbol, x vector. It is a vector to represent position. When we get into 2 dimensions, we will refer to it by both x and y. In 3 dimensions, we would add a z, but we're not going to get into 3 dimensions. So, position, things you need to know. It is a vector value. We'll talk about what that means exactly, not right now. So, position is a vector. You need to know that. There's the symbol. What do we mean by this? It is the location of an object with reference to the origin. That is what we mean by position. It's really 2 things. It is the distance and direction from the origin to the object. Draw you a picture. If the origin is here, if this is our origin, and my object is here, this is my object, then the position is this arrow, from here to there. This arrow is the position of the object. It is the distance and direction from the origin to the object. Now that we have the concept of position and we know what we mean by that, we can move on to a slightly more complicated idea. If we have position, then we can go from one position to another, and we get a concept which we call displacement. Displacement has a symbol, delta x. The delta symbol always means change. So this can really be read change in position, which is literally the definition. This is the change in position of an object. All changes are calculated by subtraction. So this equation has a symbol, and this symbol has an equation, and it comes out of the definition. To find a change in anything, you take what it is now, the final position, and subtract off what it was previously, the initial position. And in doing that, we will have found the change in position, or the displacement. These are vectors. So it's not really just straight up algebra or arithmetic, we have to do vector addition or subtraction. So I'll draw you a picture so that you can get the idea of what we mean by this. If we place the origin here, if an object moves from here at A over here to B, we can draw our position vectors. There is position A. Here is position B. The displacement is the difference between these two things. It's also, so in addition to this, we have the idea that displacement is the distance and direction an object moves or has moved. Well, we know that the object went from A to B, so we can actually draw our displacement vector. It's right there. This is the displacement, which is position B minus position A. So we see two things out of this. We get the idea, what do we mean by displacement? Well, we mean this, it's following my pen. That's interesting. What we mean by displacement is the distance and direction from where you were to where you are. It's also the subtraction of these two position vectors, which will be the topic of another video. We will specifically have a video dedicated to the subtraction of vectors. So that is the basic definitions that we need to start with in order to build up the idea of what is velocity.